Yeah, so first of all, thank you everyone for your time and that I can also be part of this meeting here in this presentation. So finally, just to let you know, Bettervest is one of the crowdfunding platforms in Europe that is funding energy projects, also in countries outside Europe, which is for us mainly Africa, but we also did some projects in America and in Asia. So first of all, I didn't know if every one of you knows what is crowdfunding. So I brought in my presentation some slides also to explain what is crowdfunding. So on the next slide, I can show you. So I think some of you, yeah, thank you so much. So crowdfunding just means, to be honest, that private people are funding jointly a project and where they know exactly where the money is going to. So crowdfunding, to be honest, exists since hundreds of years, but just since, you can say 10 years, it's very common to finance projects, especially now with the new technical possibilities that we have in the world. Crowdfunding is all technology driven, all full automatically running. And so it's a very common way now to finance projects also in the renewable energy sector and energy efficiency. There are different types of crowdfunding, also to give you a little bit background. So you see here in this gray bubble, the different kinds of crowdfunding that exist. So there is, for example, donation-based, which just means that people give money to a certain donation project. Then there is reward-based. This is, for example, when you have startups that produce something, so like they produce a new kind of clock, then all the investors would get this clock, then it's a reward-based. Then we have equity-based crowdfunding, where the crowd investors would really become shareholders of the new entity. And there is lending-based, that's what we do and what many of crowdfunding platforms do. So it's at the end a loan that the crowd investors are giving to a project, to a company, and therefore they get a certain interest rate. Yeah? And the platform is just a mediator. So why is it so interesting, or why is it so important that there is crowdfunding for energy projects? I mean, I wrote here in developing countries, but also in all the other countries. In these countries, for example, in Africa, we have many small-scale decentralized projects, and the SMEs that are conducting those projects, they have mostly not such a high track record yet, and so that's why they have also problems sometimes to find the financing from a bank. Yeah, the projects are small, they are not yet on the market since a long time, and so for the banks it's not so attractive to finance such a project, let's say in the size of 100,000 to 2 million. For the banks it's too small, so they would do the really big projects, but when it comes to the smaller projects it's not so attractive for them. And clearly it's also high country risk exposure, so for the banks, again, it's also clearly for the local banks it's more easy, but for external banks they would mainly not do it. And so these companies that are doing such projects, they have a challenge to access finance, and they need mostly also equity sometimes when they want to even get a loan bank, but they need also requirements like guarantees and so on for banks. The due diligence costs are very high per project, and the local and national banking system failures, as I mentioned before. So that's different reasons why it's very difficult for those companies to get any way of financing. That leads to the fact that we as Bettervest have had more and more inquiries from those countries. And we were also happy to finance those projects, because it doesn't mean that the players are not professional. They are very often very professional players and very nice projects, but just because of the size of the project and also the local banking situation, it's very hard to get a financing. So next slide. And how does it run? Yeah, so finally, we are a crowdfunding platform to organize investments from German investors. So when we start, but let's start on the right side. So here we have the projects. The crowdfunding can finance up to 100% of the costs. Clearly that depends on the risk of the project. Mostly we like that there is more equity inside or own cash. And they offer then through our platform, they can offer their project to the crowd. So we do, first of all, the due diligence on the project. Then we discuss with them the terms that we would suggest to be offered to the crowd. And then the project is put on our platform, and we as Bettervest, we bring all the legal documents, we bring the whole technology to make it automatically happen. So the project owners, they don't have any work at all then from that time on. Clearly they have to give us all the information we need for the financial and technical due diligence, and they bring us some photos and they exchange with us. So we write a text for them, we exchange the text and we discuss it, and then it's offered to the crowd. So typically the loan term is between 2 and 10 years. This depends also on the amortization time. So if we have then, for example, a solar mini grid project, mostly the amortization time is really high. So that would mean that a longer term is okay. But if it comes to pre-financing of solar home systems that are sold in 1 or 2 years, then the loan term is also shorter because the money can come back earlier. The interest rate is mostly between 5 to 10%, even though we had already smaller projects. So a smaller interest rate, for example, in January, we just financed a project of BayWa, a big wind project developer in Germany. They did also something like a public citizen project with Bettervest, because they wanted to give the people in the region the chance to earn some money by financing the project. So that was only 3.5%, because BayWa is a very big, very reputable company, very financially stable. It was more like that they wanted to involve the citizens into the project. Yeah, so that was an example for citizen involvement. So they did then not let the citizens become shareholder in the wind park, but at least that they can also finance a part of the project and get an interest rate. And the crowd, with regards to German legislation, can invest 250 up to 25,000 euro automatically. Higher investments are possible, but then we would have to make it manually, because then we would have higher requirements on the documents they have to fill out. So that all runs automatically. Therefore, we get a one-off fee. So everything we fund, or the crowd funds, we get a certain percentage. And then we also get an annual fee, because we coordinate the whole communication with the crowd, the text documents they need, and also the payback to the crowd. We work with a trustee, so with a bank, but nevertheless, it has to be prepared how much money is going to who, and so there we prepare all the documents. So next page. Yeah, and I just wanted to give you a short impression of how the crowd investment in Germany developed. So in 2019, it was already 422 million euro. It has been crowdfunded. To be honest, when you look worldwide, this is very small. All over the world, it's nearly 100. It's 100 billion nearly already, but they count clearly also all the donation into it and everything that has to do with crowd investment, not just the lending. But you see also here in this slide that the biggest part, and sorry, this is in German, but the biggest part, you see the big blue column, this is real estate. And then the next biggest one, this is financing of startups and enterprises. And then just the next small blue one, this is energy. So you see that the energy sector is still very small. So there is still lots of space also in Germany to invest more in the energy sector. And so we think we have to, still a big job to bring that kind of projects to the German crowd. No? Yeah, next slide. So I also wanted to give you just a possibility to see what are the eligibility criteria, so that a company could be financed via Bettervest or could have the possibility to bring the project online. So it must be okay for them that they pay back the loan in annuity payments. So we do not allow that just the whole loan is paid back at the end of the term. 2 to 10 years must be acceptable, as well as an interest rate for the crowd between 5 to 10%. So who is deciding these terms? At the end is the borrower who decides, but we have also to be sure that the crowd will fund the project, because if we do all this work and bring everything online, we only are paid on success. And if we believe that the interest rate the borrower chooses is too low and we cannot fill it up with the crowd, we would not bring it online. So then we have the type of financing. So we do project finance, means there must be a concrete project that where the money goes to. And also we do refinancing of projects. That means if some company has already installed photovoltaic plants on roofs, then we can also refinance those. We would not finance startups or prototyping. So for example, if there would be a new type of wind, we have many inquiries that there are very special wind turbines that someone developed, and then they want to build a prototype of it. That we would not do, because it's a quite risky thing. And there are other crowdfunding platforms that especially are concentrated and also specialized on those kind of startup and prototyping finance. For example, Seed Match, or other ones is Back First, and so on. So if there is an interest in that, I can also give you the names of those typical startup and prototyping finance crowdfunding platforms. What kind of technologies do we as Bettervest finance? So we come from the energy efficiency sector, but then we jumped very quickly also into renewable and resource efficiency. I myself an engineer in mechanical engineering, and I was working in the wind sector for many years. So we are very open for technologies. No? So that's a USP of Bettervest. So we are not just on solar. But if there is no social or no environmental impact, we will also not finance it. Which means that we would not finance just energy projects. That means, I don't know, diesel generator or something. So the location, we are very open to all kind of countries, but for legal reason, the borrowing entity must be located in Germany, Netherlands, or Kenya. That's something I already discussed with Mr. Xenger, because he told me that what is the interest of you. And finally, for legal reasons, it must be in one of these countries. We can also do other countries, but then we would have to check local law, and that's costly. It's also possible to do that. But just so that you know, these countries are very simple. Anyway, it's most common that borrowers who want to get a loan from the German crowd, they create a German SPV, so a GmbH or a UG. These are the typical entity types that we have in Germany. And then the loan goes there, and from there on it will be on-landed to the local company in the country. So we could also organize several loans over such a vehicle. That's also a possibility. The loan size that we are focusing on is a 100,000 to 2.5 million. That's where we feel good with, but our preferred size is even 200,000 to 500,000, because we can fill up that amount very quickly. And the credit rating of the company must be a good one, must be a lower risk. I mean, we see clearly also information on the company, on their balance sheet, on the cash flow plan that they send us, and so on. We, like all the other crowdfunding platforms, are so at that point at the moment that we only like to finance really very stable and experienced companies with a good track record, because the experience showed that if the projects fail, too many projects fail, the crowd is very angry and will not finance anymore, clearly. So we became very careful now. So we started end of 2012, beginning 2013, and have made clearly much experience with that. So we became very careful. Nevertheless, what I didn't mention here is there's always also the chance to do something like a hidden crowdfunding. That means that not our crowd is financing the projects, but just a certain crowd that you choose yourself. If that happens, we don't care, to say so. Then we are just a provider of the technology. And so that would then leave more space for the borrowers. So if the borrower then say, okay, I have my own crowd, or anyway, like you plan to involve the citizen of the region, then for you it doesn't matter. So then Bettervest would also not do a financial due diligence or whatever, but just provide the technology. So you can then offer such crowdfunding projects to the local community yourself, and can just use our technology and our service to run it. But then the local citizens would also have to fill it up. So next slide. And how fast is such a process? So we normally do in the first 1 to 2 3 weeks the first offer and the first financial due diligence. We then also like directly to agree on certain terms, and then the bigger part is then coming also by exchanging the documents, and then an independent third party will do a technical due diligence on the project. It takes normally also 2 to 3 weeks. And then there are some materials to be done, like videos, pictures, and so on. And then we have to send the project to the German financing regulator, BaFin. If all runs well and all the parties are very well prepared, you see this all can be done in 2 to 3 months. But this is the perfect case. So this means that the documents that we request will be sent quickly. And again, this is then in case if we would fund the projects with our own crowd. The time, how fast such a project can be funded, depends very much on the risk of the project. So if it's a very low risk, like with BayWa, it went in 2 days. So in 2 days, the project was done. But if there's a more risky project, not so attractive to the crowd or too complicated, then it can even take 3 to 5 months. Nevertheless, at the moment with Corona, anyway, everything changed, because all the platforms that are active, like we are outside Europe, they have seen a reduction of funding volumes down to 25% of what it was before. So that means at the moment, the figures are not so representative what we have currently on our platform. But you can say normally it takes 2 to 5 months, depending on the size of the project and the risk profile, to fill up a project. Next slide. Here I just wanted to show you the countries where we already funded some projects. So you see it's really all over the world, and especially very much in Africa. And 80% of our future growth will be by international projects, so outside Germany. Next slide. Oh, that's it already. So I just wanted to mention something verbally also, because finally I spoke to Mr. Gesenger, and I know what is the aim or what I think is the aim of most of you, is to involve the local community in such projects. I think that crowdfunding can be a very beautiful solution to organize the involvement of citizens in the community on a very cost-efficient way. You can create a corporation, that's clearly also a very beautiful way to involve them. But then you have to run the corporation, you have a CEO that you have to pay the cost for. If you do a crowdfunding, where you also can do an equity crowdfunding, so the crowd can be shareholder in the project, then the whole work is done automatically by the crowdfunding platform system. So it's much easier then to handle everything, even though you still clearly need then a CEO for the project, but the costs can be very much reduced. The thing is that if a company or a corporation or a community is choosing to go such a way, it needs to work with a white label solution of one of the crowdfunding platforms. So crowdfunding platforms provide also such solutions that you can use. We from Bettervest, to be open, and never have done it, because it's still more like a niche market. And so we mostly only financed projects of borrowers that said, okay, I have just a project. I don't want to have a corporation involved. I just want to give German crowd investors the chance to finance it for me. I need the money. And I also said to Mr. Gesenger that now with the BayWa project, for example, we made the experience that the local community is perhaps even not that interested in getting involved as we think. So BayWa also did the project with Bettervest and just allowed the local community to finance it because they thought there is a big interest. But we started the campaign and let the local crowd of the region let it fund 3 months, and nearly nothing happened. So they just collected 50,000. And then we opened it to our crowd, and then in 2 days, everything was funded. Yeah, that means that to my experience or to our experience, it's not always like that, that the local community is really interested in financing those things, even though clearly we offered now just a loan to the local community and not to be really shareholders, which surely can make a difference, and especially when a local corporation has been founded and there's a big community that is very keen to support the projects. Yeah, so that's it from my side.
Thank you so much. This was very insightful and very valuable information indeed.